Okay, so here we are at the third episode of Uncovering the Roots of Loneliness, where in episode 2, I spoke about how some people are hardwired towards being lonely, just like how people are hardwired towards addiction. And since we know how hard it is to navigate addiction recovery, we must understand that loneliness is not going to be any different. However, I do believe that the cure to both loneliness and addiction can be found in the same solution. And you'll have to wait for my recommendations that will be presented in the final episode. In this episode, I will continue to comb through the report from the US Surgeon General on the epidemic of loneliness and isolation. Let's look at the generational gap and how the younger adults are experiencing loneliness versus the aging population. The report spoke about a 2022 study that found when people are asked how close they felt to others emotionally, only 39% of adults in the US said they felt very connected to other people. And so when you tell me that 60% of people in the US feel emotionally disconnected, that speaks to the lack of empathy and compassion that exists in this world. That's the adults. What about the younger adults? They say that some of the highest rates of loneliness are among young adults. I came across this interview between Jordan Peterson and Chris Williamson titled 34% of young adults report feeling loneliness. 34%. Is that high? Because loneliness is an emotion. Loneliness is a feeling. It was a 15-minute video, and 7 minutes into it, I didn't hear too much substance about what the root of this problem was or how to solve it. So I went to the comments. Social media, shut it all down now. Most people are walking around like zombies staring at their phones. It's like we forgot and lost the ability to connect with each other like normal human beings. Most of us in society even act afraid of eye contact with another human being. We don't even say, hi, how are you? Or even good morning. And I don't know if it's really the phones that we're distracted by, or if it's just highlighting their already, don't want to say antisocial, but lack of interest in in-person social interactions. Just if you're lonely, just go and socially connect. Well, this is how the younger adults are connecting, is through technology. So we have to embrace it. We have to find a way to work within something that is very new, right? It's a very new thing for people. So of course they're going to misuse it. Of course it's going to cause damage. And what we need to come to learn about is how to use it in a healthier way. And we'll see if we can get there. People are depressed because of social media. It creates the illusion that you have community when you really don't. You see the highlight reels and wonder, why isn't my life that exciting? People have lost the confidence and don't know how to talk to people in person anymore. It's really sad. FOMO. What generation invented that acronym? Fear of missing out. If you remember the article that I spoke about in episode 2, that said that individuals with autism spectrum disorders, bipolar, major depressions, and schizophrenia tend to have lower sociability scores. So having already a lower sociability score, actually technology has allowed them to be more social because it's not in the traditional way. I've seen a lot of creators coming on social media who are autistic and who are talking about their experience and are able to interact and connect with other people like them. Whereas in normal day, everyday interactions in your community, it's going to be very difficult for you to do that. So apparently only 20% of people who often or always feel lonely or isolated actually recognize it as a major problem. And I wonder if that's because we don't give consideration to our mental health. So far, this report hasn't directly connected the issue of social disconnection to mental health. Rather, they seem to be saying that social disconnection is the cause for our declining health, but not mental health. I mean, like they say anxiety and depression, but more so, they're concerned about how that's impacting our physical health and costing the system money. Because loneliness is a feeling that's supposed to spark action. You're supposed to respond to it. Just like if you're feeling thirsty, it causes you to get something to drink. If you feel hungry, you get something to eat. If you're cold, you warm yourself up. Loneliness is supposed to spark you to connect. And the thing is that normally you would go and connect with other people, but instead we're connecting with our phones. So we're connecting through technology, and then we're connecting through substances. And this is what our society have given us, right? Like they said, here you go. We're introducing this alcoholic beverage for you for a Friday night when you're bored and lonely. Drink this and you'll feel better, right? Here you go. We've got these gaming systems. You can just play games and you can feel like you're involved in another city and a whole nother life. And you can build houses and you can do this and you can do that and just escape into a different reality. And then we'll even give you a phone where you can actually see real people in real time and people that are your friends and people you've never met before. Or maybe you can become friends with them, or you can just talk to them for years and years and years and never meet in person, right? Just like the substances of alcohol and drugs that we've been given, technology is no different. We have those at our fingertips as a way to cure our loneliness. It's like we've been given synthetic forms of curing our loneliness to the point where the brain then says, "Oh, we're getting our needs met. We're connecting. We're okay. We don't need to go out in the world to do any of that because we can just stay home and satisfy those reward pathways instead that trick us into thinking that we are connecting, but we're really not. It's a fake synthetic form of connection. It's just like with drug addiction, where you're feeling really low and sad and depressed, and you go and you take, say, crystal meth or cocaine, and it sends a message to the dopamine receptors and fires them off. And the dopamine receptors are like, wow, those neurotransmitters are firing off a ton of those feel-good hormones to the point where those brain pathways are saying, oh, we got lots. We got lots. We don't need to secrete our natural dopamine anymore because there's all this surge of synthetic stuff coming in. But eventually that wears off, and it wears off. And then the brain is saying, oh, it's gone. Well, we better turn our system back on. Okay, everybody, the neural pathways are communicating to each other again. Hey guys, we're down. We need to spark that up, but it's going to take a while. And so while you're over here, not realizing that the brain has to send these messages, that you screwed it around for a bunch of time to make it be tricked to think that they were good with the natural dopamine and serotonin that you were synthetically prescribing to it, you don't know that it's going to take a while. And oftentimes we don't have patience. We want immediate, quick fixes, right? We want things now. We're also becoming a generation where we don't have to wait for things. We don't like to wait. There's a big problem with people having patience. Patience is no longer a virtue. Like patience is like a serious commodity that we need to reinstill in ourselves. Nonetheless, while we're waiting for our brain to do the natural thing, we get impatient and we say, screw it, just give me that drink or just give me that drug, just give it to me now. And we'll get really anxious about obtaining it, so just give it to me. I feel better. Oh, okay. And then the brain's like, oh, we got it. We can shut down. We don't need to produce any more of that. Well, false alarm, false alarm. Apparently human is taking care of itself. We don't need to do that. Right? So it's the same thing where those natural receptors in our brain that would naturally respond to loneliness by engaging in connection with other people, it's been shut down because we have these other ways that we're filling it. Over time, is having a detrimental impact, right? It actually suppresses our natural ability to go and do that on our own. And to be quite frank with you, to go and do those natural social engagements and interactions just don't hit the same, They're just not reaching the firing in the same way that the quick fix of social media and substances are doing. So I don't really think this is about eradicating loneliness. Loneliness is a feeling, just like any other feeling we have. And we need to look at why we are lonely and how long have we been feeling that way? What is the underlying reason for our feelings? What thoughts have we been telling ourselves about who we are and about this world that we live in? Most times it's not because of a lack of social connection. It's about our thoughts, about the connections, and our ability or interest to connect. But it is very interesting because I've heard before that someone living with a spouse, even if they're in an unhealthy relationship, will still live longer than someone who's living alone. But I don't know. Like, how true is that? Because I saw this video on this woman who's been widowed for 40 years and she never had any children and she's lived to be over 100 and she's sharing her secrets for longevity, which include a glass of wine every day. You know, like my grandmother lived to be 102 and she didn't live with a man since after the age of 80. Here's a little chart I found. And almost 20 years ago, we were seeing this as a problem back then. And people took a poll to see the self-reported loneliness among older adults. And you can see in Greece, it was the highest at 62%, with Denmark being the least. And it's interesting with Denmark because they practice something called hygge, which is this coziness in the winter months when it's very dark and cold. A major part of practicing hygge requires connection, getting together with people, even if it's just a small group and sometimes bigger groups. And that might be true for Switzerland and Sweden. But then you see like Sweden and the United States, the United States actually has an updated, everywhere else is 2005 and this one says 2018. There's a few. England and the US have a 2018 stat. That's really weird. I don't know why they did that. Greece, I don't know what's going on for you in Greece. Anyone from Greece? What you can say that's all about? I thought Greece would be a great place to get older. And I've seen graphs showing that as you get older, you naturally just spend more time alone. You have less people around you that are still there to spend time with. By 2050, the world's population of people aged 60 years and older is going to double up to 2.1 billion. So I digress. We look at the younger adults, we look at the older adults, we see the changes that they're both experiencing from two completely different generations. And the older adults had children, and those children have raised these younger adults. And it's like there was this disconnect, this boomer decade, this boomer generation. What did the boomer generation do that has impacted the younger adults so much? What has gone on? My first thought is the boomer generation had a whole lot of shit going on, a whole lot of trauma that came from their parents, who were the war sort of generation, who were the ones who carved out, a living and hard work. And they're like, okay, we're going to continue to do all this hard work, but we're going to do it even better. Okay. And now we're going to pass it on to our kids and we're going to say, you need to do it even better. You need to do it even better. And this boomer population, they are the ones who did not get any kind of acknowledgement for any mental health things that were going on with them. They're the ones that are operating in fight or flight. They're the ones who are raising kids and not telling them that they love them. They're the ones who are just like going on with blinders and don't disregard the system of capitalism. Some of you are commenting on my video saying, oh, it's not capitalism. That's not why we're lonely. No, I don't know. This has been steadily increasing over the years. This is not a new problem. It's not like capitalism showed up yesterday. It's been around for a very long time, just like the rates of loneliness have been increasing over this very long period of time. I don't know. I'm going to make that correlation. Okay. The older population, they are struggling because the systems are crumbling and not being there for them. And the younger generation is not understanding what the heck is this system that I came into the world with. I don't agree with it. And then everybody else is like, this is what we made. This is how it is. This is just how it is. What are you guys doing? Come on, toughen up, suck it up. Let's go. Get your act together. Motivate yourself. Why are you so lazy? Yeah, shaming. We're shaming the younger population for things. We're not showing up for them. We're not showing them compassion. We're not being empathetic to them at all. We're just thinking like, you guys should just be like us. You should just, you got it made. Look at all these things that you have now. It's way better than when I grew up. Is it though? Is it? Right? Yeah, I think there's a lot of judgment. I think there's a lot of shaming, and there's a lot of ableism, and we're not taking the system of capitalism seriously enough to recognize the global impact that it's having on our loneliness and our social isolation.